Zach Miller, you legend. We're in Silverton here 2 days before the 2024 Hardrock 100. We got a lot to talk about, I guess, first and foremost. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, maybe more than we'd like, but feeling pretty good. Thanks for having me here.
So let's start in the obvious place. You posted last week, to the shock and dismay of many, that you had woken up with some pain in your abdomen. Ultimately, after some time, appendectomy occurred. Start from the beginning. I'd love to just hear about the sensation that you were experiencing and sort of what evolved from there.
I woke up. It was kind of crazy, like you just hope to get through the training block like unscathed, and I made it through the training block in pretty good shape. I did have a knee that was a bit cranky, but all things considered, made it through good and started to taper down. Went for an easy hour, 40 minutes on a more mellow part of the course. That day, July 4th, came back, felt fine. We watched the fireworks in Silverton. I made some donuts for my friends who were at the fireworks. And then I remember I ate a donut and my stomach was empty. I had went for a run and we hadn't eaten dinner yet. It was I remember eating a donut, a Fosnot, and thinking oh, something feels a little weird. But I kind of chalked it up to being maybe it's just because it's I just ate a fried donut on an empty stomach late at night. I was so we probably just need to eat some dinner. So my girlfriend Jess and I, we went up to Cunningham Gulch, made some dinner, ate dinner, went to bed. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I could just tell something was off in my gut, like a stomach ache, basically. Mm-hmm. But it was a familiar pain because I've actually been getting abdominal episodes for 3 years. But my girlfriend's a dietitian and we've never really been able to correlate them to anything. We can't correlate them really to something I eat or something I do or a certain intensity of training or anything. They just sort of randomly happen. And sometimes they're maybe over in 2 or 3 hours. And sometimes they're 6 to 12 hours. And then I actually had one a month ago. My buddy Peter Maximo witnessed it because I was at his house, on his couch trying to get through it. And it lasted 25 hours. And he was there with me and he was I think you have kidney stones. He's I think you have kidney stones, which kind of made sense because they come on really intense and then just all of a sudden they're just basically gone. And then I'm fine. And I'll go out the next day, that 25-hour one. I probably went out the next day and ran 4 or 5 hours. So he was I think you have kidney stones, but it went away, went back to normal, went back to training. And then that night in Cunningham Gulch, I could feel it coming on. I was hopeful that it was just a minor stomach ache, but I could feel it building and I was this is going exactly like it always goes. Feels the same way. I feel bloated, up top, feels nothing will move. It's a lot of pain. It's building. To be completely honest, I feel very bloated up top. I feel a lot of, intense sort of stomach ache pain. And this is a little much, but I would normally feel like someone's squeezing my balls. Yeah. That's what it would feel like. And so I started feeling all of this,
Sorry to laugh. Dude.
No, it's fine. It's actually kind of funny. So I started feeling this all over again that morning by within 2 hours, it had gotten really bad. And that was the difference this time.
So does it feel
it went super quick. It was okay, I hope this isn't it. And then within 2-3 hours, I was in enough pain that I'm not much of a verbal expressor of pain.
Yeah.
And I was at that point where I was kind of yelling and just like making a lot of noises.
So could it be that this was a 3-year issue that came to a head at the perfectly wrong time?
We hope, because I don't want to have those pains ever again.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it got that bad, we were like, well, let's go to Durango. So we were up at Cunningham, and that's it's a pretty good road, but it's bumpy.
Yeah.
So Jess was in the front driving the bus. I was in the back on the bed, just like writhing in pain. We bounced down to Silverton. We checked with Megan Hicks real quick just to see if there'd be any good options here. Cause I was like, if by chance there's some like Dr. Quinn medicine woman in this town who can just like rub my head and make me better. Like, we're doing that and not driving an hour. But she was like, yeah, Silverton has a nurse. So it was like, okay, we're going Durango. So we went to Durango. And yeah, long story short, I was first misdiagnosed with kidney stones, like my buddy Peter thought.
Yeah.
Then they came back in and said, forget everything. Like that it's actually acute appendicitis. And when I went to get the surgery, they switched me to a different hospital to get surgery. And that surgeon did say that you can have a condition in your appendix where there's like a cyst or something, and it like flares up and calms down and flares up and calms down. So they're doing an analysis of my appendix. I have a follow-up in about a week to get like the outcome of what that analysis shows. But I guess sort of the hope is that maybe that's what was going on in mine, meaning that maybe these past 3 years of like very sporadic on and off, like out of the blue episodes were just that, and that they're behind me now.
So is there any indication as to why? Probably not. So I guess...
I mean, I'm sure if you know your medical stuff and your science, like maybe there's, at least some theories of why an appendix goes bad. It sounds like the appendix is a bit of a mysterious organ that they're not, and they have some theories on why it might be there in the body, but like in terms of why it goes bad, I don't know. I mean,
kind of interesting.
I'm sure someone has an idea. I don't know if anyone has an absolute like definitive reason. So it just seems like luck of the draw.
So tell us about the operation and what things have been like in this past week. I mean, because obviously what everybody's going to want to know is how do you feel and what does this mean for you taking the start line at Hardrock?
Yeah. So, I mean, the fortunate thing was when they told me it was appendicitis and not kidney stones, in one way I was relieved because kidney stones can be a reoccurring thing. They don't have a great solution for them. So I was like, great. Like, I don't want to have this the rest of my life. So it not being kidney stones was a relief. An appendix surgery should be pretty one and done. Just like we take it out, it's gone, problem's gone. Recovery is actually pretty cruiser. Like it's a laparoscopic, like mine did not burst. If it bursts, it's a lot bigger deal. Mine didn't burst. So it's like a laparoscopic surgery. They poked 3 holes in me, like at my belly button, my side, and like right up, like front and center, down low. And they just like go in with their instruments, like snip it off, staple it, pull it out, and then like suture you up. And it's really just, I don't even go back in for stitches removal. The staples that are in me at my colon stay in. The sutures in the 3 holes that they poked in me are dissolvable. And then there's like some butterfly tape on the outside that I get to take off in like a few days.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty minimal. I mean, I went in that evening. I came out of surgery. They gave, I was walking around the hospital halls that night. I probably walked like 30 minutes in the hallways with my girlfriend. The next day I was released. I was eating food. I walked like 3 miles down in Durango. And then the next day I rode my gravel bike for like an hour and 40 minutes. And then the next day I ran 8 miles, and then the next day I ran 6, and then the next day, and then today I ran like 4.5 because we're tapering. So
the good news is for our audience, you're feeling better, and hopefully this does resolve a 3-year thing. But the major question marks are: what does this mean for Hardrock? You were saying before we got started that there's a few different variables here. Number one, how you're feeling. Number one, how your doctor feels about you. Yeah. Number 3, how the race feels about the combination of that. Yeah. So explain that.
Yeah, it's really this like team effort of deciding if I'm on the line or not. So first, and like obviously the race knows that this has happened, with, in today's day and age with, just social media and the very fast grapevine, everybody's pretty aware. So the race, and understandably so, has determined that I'll need a signed off medical clearance from my doctor if I want to toe the line. If I get that, then the race will still decide themselves if they're comfortable having me in the race. And then if they decide that, I still have to decide myself if I'm up for being in the race. So as far as my doctor is concerned, I've talked to him about like the, sort of like how much risk there is, and is it too much to compete? Like, and
is the risk that like you fall and dislodge the internal staples?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a medical expert. I mean, I can basically just speak to what I've spoken to my doctor about and some other medical folks. Basically my doctor is, I'm not, these aren't necessarily absolutes of like, there can never be any risk, but like the opinions are that like my doctor feels that he's not concerned about me doing damage to the site where like the cutting was done, where the appendix was taken off of the colon. He's not concerned about, he doesn't think that I would do damage to that. I do have these spots where they went in to access it, these 3 holes. So those are still healing. So I guess there would be some level of risk of maybe like infection if, dirt or something got in there, which you would have some level of risk in doing anything really, but more so in a race, I guess. I guess you could take a fall and like maybe like open those up. I don't necessarily know every single risk there is. My doctor feels that the risk is not so great that I couldn't race, but at the same time, like it becomes a legal issue of like, once you legally sign off on something, it becomes a lot more complicated. Right, yeah. So like my doctor's been great in his personal opinion. He doesn't think the risk is too great. But would he sign off medically? That's what we're waiting to see.
So when do you anticipate making the final decision? We're 48 hours away from the race.
Yeah,
less than that
it's a lot to handle, especially with like, initially I thought I was just done because the first surgeon was like, it's going to ruin next weekend. And then, or not, he wasn't the surgeon. He was just the guy at the ER. And then my surgeon, before I ever went for surgery, was like, well, you might be, and he's going to be at the race. He comes up and watches it. He told me before I went in, he's like, well, you might be able to race. He's like, I don't think you would finish. He's like, but you might be able to start. He's like, and if you are, I'll be there. So I'll be cheering for you.
Nice.
So once he said that, then it sort of cause we were kind of like, I guess we're done. And then once he said that, and then a few other people expressed similar things, we were like, well, maybe there's a slim chance here. So yeah, it's like 48 hours out. We called, there's been a lot of back and forth of like, ask this question, wait for an answer, ask this question, wait for an answer. So we're at the point where we've called the hospital today, left some messages. We're waiting for them to hopefully get back to us. And so that's where we're at. We're just waiting to hear from the doctor. If we have trouble getting a hold of him, I think it sounds like there might be somebody in the medical team with the race who might have connection with my doctor that they might be able to like reach out to him themselves.
So, but like this time tomorrow, you probably like you need to know whether you're going to.
I hope I know, but all I'm really doing right now is I'm just preparing as if I'm racing.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know if I'm racing, but I'm just like, I'm going through the taper motions as if I'm racing. I'm eating as if I'm racing. I'm working, I'm pulling together like my nutrition plan and my crew plan, all of that, like just as if I'm racing. So, that way, if we get all green lights and the stars align, then we can go. But we don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it could all be for, it could be we do all the race prep and then we're serving donuts instead.
Yeah, which wouldn't be so bad. But we're all rooting for you, and we know you'll make the right decision for you based on the advice that you receive from medical professionals. Before we let you go, I just want to talk to you about like the lead up to this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is one of, if not the main focus of your season. I was just going back through your Strava and just like shaking my head at the massive volume that you put in for Hardrock prep. And I'm sure your fans would love to hear you talk about it. So just adding your color, I mean, just from my perspective, it's like 140, 150 mile weeks, 40, 50,000 feet of climbing, 25, 35 hours of just run training. I'm sure you're doing a lot of supplementary stuff on top of that to speak about this training block and, maybe how it compares to, because I remember before UTMB last year, you said that you were very focused on vertical accumulation. So if you want to compare it, contrast it to what you were doing before UTMB and add any other color that you can on your prep. Yeah,
it was similar to what I did for UTMB last year. Definitely a heavy focus on vert. I actually probably did I did actually sort of like care a little bit about the miles. It's almost more of just like, what am I jazzed? I mean, I cared more about the vert, but like last year UTMB, I was basically like, I don't care what the miles are. Yeah. This year, I feel like I actually kind of had some mileage goals. For whatever reason, the brain was just still interested in that. But the main focus was like getting that vert. And then towards the end, it became more so the vert, and I didn't care about the miles as much. But yeah, it was similar to UTMB. The difference this year was like, I think last year, pretty much everything I did volume wise last year in terms of vert was like new territory to me. It was like the year before I'd gone to like 33,000 feet of vert for weeks. And then last year I was pushing into new territory of like 40, 50. I think I topped out at like 59 or something. This year I had already been there, and the difference was I got there and I kind of knew where I was, and then I actually like sustained it. So like last year I probably sort of like peaked out, like had probably had like a 40, like I probably had a few of those really big vert weeks, and then I kind of like came back down. This year I kind of like got up there and then just kind of held it, managed to hold it for like, I think I held it for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. I definitely did like a gradation of like 3 weeks up, 1 week back, 3 weeks up, 1 week back. And I kind of needed that, I think. Cause like by the end of the third week, I'd be like, I need,
I'm glad to hear you say that.
I need a breather here. And then I strategically did my last 2 weeks. I did like 3s, and then the last one was a 2. Cause you dig a pretty deep hole in 3 weeks. So then like the last weeks before taper was not 3 big weeks. It was 2 big weeks and then go into taper. But yeah, I probably got up to like 40, 45,000 and then held it between like 40 and like, I think I topped at like 56 this year.
Yeah.
So I held it between like 40 and 56 for probably like 4 or 5 weeks. There was probably like a down week in there somewhere. But
well, I was just looking,
just that sustained.
And you have something in the neighborhood of like 720,000 feet of vertical already in 2024. So you're on pace for like
last year I hit a million, and I wasn't trying, like I had no goal to hit 1 million, but at the end of the year, people started like writing to me and being like,
you're about
to hit 1 million feet of vert this year. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like
you're going to blow past that in October this year.
Yeah. And anyway. I'm like well on track right now. But, although I think, I occasionally get the pleasure of skiing a little bit with Chris Jones in Bend. He's a former pro cyclist who's just also a crusher skimo guy.
Yeah.
And I think he might have hit like 500,000 of vert, like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, so it was like, he's like, got to keep up with him.
Oh yeah.
So,
you got to keep up.
But, so it was like, it was vert heavy. But there was more focus this year, on like, my like the zone of altitude that I was training in.
Yeah, okay.
Because Hardrock is so high.
That's what I was going to ask you. So maybe you can build off this and I'll set it up for you a little bit, because you spent a lot of time in, it looked like you were in Boulder for a bit, spent a lot of time back in Colorado Springs. Mm-hmm. And then it seems like you've been here in the San Juans for a while. So talk about that, the altitude stimulus and the places in which you were doing this training.
Yeah. So I did my winter in Bend, in Oregon. But Bend's not super high. Town's like 3,500. I sleep at like 5,900 because I drive the bus up in the winter. I drive the bus up into the mountains and sleep near the ski areas. So I sleep at like 59, but I'm always going down to like hang out with my girlfriend, and we go out to Smith Rock and stuff and run. So you're always getting low. So I wanted to get consistently at altitude. So at like late April, I came out to Colorado Springs. At that point, Hardrock is a really interesting race to train for because the race happens basically just as the San Juans finish melting out. Mm-hmm. So you want to get up there at those high altitudes and train, but like everything's covered in snow. So if you have skis, you're maybe kind of golden, but like in terms of run train and you want to get that pounding in your legs, the dry stuff is on the front range. So I went to Colorado Springs where I know the trails, and the beauty of the Colorado Springs is we can go to the top of Pikes Peak. Like if you're savvy and you know your way, like we can go to the top of Pikes Peak year round. Mm-hmm. And now Pikes had a big spring. It got dumped on this year. So when I showed up, like it was super snowy. Mm-hmm. But we have a little peak, or not little, we have a peak in the Springs called Cameron Cone that tops out at like 10,700. And you can go from town to the top in about 3.7 miles. So you gain like 4,200 in like 3.7. And so I used that a lot. I went up because then you're getting almost to 11,000. And I went up and down Cameron Cone a lot. And then I eventually started going up on Pikes. Yeah. The reservoir melted out. I started sleeping up at the reservoir, which is like 9,000 feet. Then I did some sleeping over at the backside of Pikes Peak at the Crags Trailhead at like 10,000 feet. And then you can run up to the summit from there. And the beauty of Pikes Peak is you can go up there and like, I did one day where I did my vert laps above tree line. Like I just went up and kept lapping like from the summit, just like a straight line, like super efficient, like a summit down to tree line, back up. And it's like, I think every lap was like 2,000 feet mm-hmm. and it was like a mile or something. So yeah, I could just be up in the Hardrock zone between like 12 and 14 for like hours.
God, you sound just so primed. It's insane.
Yeah. And then we came out here. So we waited, Springs, also did some stuff in Boulder. And then we came out, a week or two before July 4th, we came out to Lake City, did a good training weekend in Lake City with my girlfriend and my buddy Brandon. And then my girlfriend drove the bus over to Silverton and I ran over to Silverton on the course. And then we've just been here since, like bopping around, like here, Telluride, Ouray.
We did that yesterday. My wife drove our son and her and our son to Silverton, and I ran, but very, very slow, as I was telling you.
Well,
suffered badly, but
you got it done.
Got it done. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm sure most people are going to be just rooting for you to make the start line this weekend. You're clearly so primed. You always like race with such enthusiasm, passion, and you've obviously done the prep and the homework to have your day here at Hardrock. Maybe in closing, you could just say a little bit about the psychology of like having this massive goal, which, as we stated earlier, is sort of the keystone of your entire competitive season, and how you as a professional athlete deal with those bumps in the road leading into a major goal like Hardrock and like you're dealing with now.
Yeah, I mean, I think mentally approaching Hardrock this year, it was just something I was excited about. I wanted to go out there and tackle something new and take on this. Like, this is every race is a race against yourself and against the course, but I feel like this one especially, and your competitors too. But like, I was pumped to go out there and see what I could do. I think with all that's happened in the past week, it's challenging because like when they were like appendicitis, I was just kind of like, well, I guess like I was really bummed, but I was also like, well, that's kind of it. Like I don't really have control over this. So it's wild to be like taper mode, like let's go, to like, oh, we're done. Yeah. Like, and then you kind of like, and like then you I kind of shut off. Again. Like I actually relaxed because I was like all nervous about the race, and then I was like, it doesn't look like it's happening. So I go in like chill mode, and then little by little there was like little green light flashes of green lights of like, maybe. So then you're kind of like, oh, like what do we like? This is a mental ride of like I thought I was done. Like I was hyped. I thought I was done, to now like I might have to rally and get my mojo back to like be on a start line. And I still like, today's Wednesday and I still don't know if I'm on a start line. Yeah. So it's wild, but I think also just like remembering like why you wanted to do it and what you put into it. And just like now it's almost like a freebie. It's like kind of cool. It's like if I get to go out there, like I sort of have a free shot. Like if it goes well, great. If it doesn't go well, like, I mean, everybody's got opinion, but I feel like no reasonable person can bash me too much for being like, oh, he's just no good anymore. It's right, like, I have an appendix out 6 days ago, so, I don't know. But then I guess like in the world of competing, it's just like, hey, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. The fitness is there. The training is there. I can pivot to something else and I can use it later this year. Yep. And that's a great thing. And that's a beautiful thing because there's a lot of exciting things out there. This is the thing I really want. But, if it doesn't, I don't know, there's Nolan's or there's Pikes Peak Marathon or there's Grand Raid Reunion, which I have no spot. I would have to wiggle my way in there. But like there's lots of other things going on. There's the rut. Like there's a lot of sure, like some of my most coveted things have already happened or, but like there's still some good options out there. What a great attitude to have, like the door is still open as we're recording this, but in the case that the door closes, another one will open up, and no matter what, we'll all be excited to see you race, whether it's here at Hardrock or somewhere later in the summer. And if it's not this year and I manage to, it's not this year and I manage to get a spot next year, I mean, next year lines up really great because it's World Championships year, and World Championships is like in October, so this is a much better time gap. Hardrock will be a nice tune-up for the World Champs next year. We'll see. Well, Zach Miller, I wish you nothing but good luck in your recovery, first and foremost, and also if you do manage to take the start line, we wish you nothing but good luck, and we'll look forward to seeing you racing. Hopefully this weekend, but if not, later on in the summertime. We appreciate you coming over. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Cheers.